I think that's...
So ulitin ko lang, let me understand this. You mean to tell me that the practice of spending Malampaya continues to finance the general fund, the general budget,
Mr. Chair, it's included in the BES
F?
F. Yeah.
Okay.
Since,
So these are part of the
beginning-
revenues.
Yes, Mr.
So
Chair.
it falls under what? Non-tax revenue.
Non-tax.
So binibilang ninyo ngayon yan
Yes, since
since the past, di ba?
time yeah.
Oh, so you're still doing that, Okay. So 2014, you may nakolekta din tayo dyan roughly 30 billion. We will be collecting another roughly 30 billion next year. Okay? Now, in the past, the previous administration and the current one spent money from Malampaya. Meaning to say, kung ginastusan natin sa general fund, and then uutang tayo and claim that this is from Malampaya, then ini-increase mo yung deficit, di ba?
That's in effect what happens.
That's what happens, right? But isn't it that dapat tinatabi natin yung perang yan for a particular purpose? Halimbawa, in the case of Malampaya, energy exploration as what the Supreme Court decided. Na dun lang natin gastusin yan, halimbawa. Or there is now a committee report in the Senate that proposes we spend 30% of that for AFP modernization as well, halimbawa.
Mr. Chair, there's this unique account, special account called 151, created by a presidential decree that allows you to have a special account within the general fund. No, so it's not, in the complete sense, a separate special account because it's within the general fund. That is how the Malampaya account has been treated from the very beginning.
Yes, but the point is there is a Supreme Court decision already na gagamitin lang yan for energy, development, explorations, unless Congress decides, working with the executive, how do we spend that money? Or should we just give it to the Treasury para general fund na talaga maliwanag?
In effect, Mr. Chair, that's what's happening with every General Appropriations Act because it's included in the proposed BESF that's presented every year.
Senator Recto, if I may. But before that, can I acknowledge the presence of Senator Osmeña? Liwanagin ko lang, Secretary. Yung pera, yung cash, sinama nyo na sa BSF at non-tax revenue ng gobyerno, and you're using the cash as part of the general fund. The
That is
cash,
correct,
the
Mr.
cash.
Chair.
Yes.
But the account of Malampaya remains intact for the purposes for which it should be spent. Tama ba yan? Ganun ba yan?
That is
Or
the way they're treating it under a special account 151. It's a unique, that's why I said it's a unique,
that was done too with the AFP modernization before.
Correct.
yeah.
Yung nakuha sa basis conversion, imbis na special account, imbis na trust account, naging special account. So yung cash na gamit, but the account is still there. Is that what you're saying?
It's a ledger that summarizes how much has been collected.
And
So-
therefore, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to follow up on that point, in effect, what you're saying is that, and that's why it's been done in the past, ginastusan ninyo yung cash na 30 billion, in this case, halimbawa, at kung maisipan ng Presidente na gastusin ulit yung 30 billion, yung 30 na nakolekta mo, pwede mong gastusin 60.
In effect, as you correctly pointed out, Mr. Chair, the deficit is increased to the extent that
Correct.
you have an appropriation.
Tama.
Yeah.
Pero tama ba yun? Parang may mali dun.
If you ask me as an accountant,
Yes.
that defies generally accepted accounting principles. But that is the way government has set it up
Yeah,
from
but
the
we've
beginning.
discussed this for 2 years now. You could have come to Congress and there are bills filed here.
Yeah.
Para
pointed
ayusin
it
yung
out
problemang
also
yan,
in the
di ba?
report. Yeah.
Okay, I will not belabor the point, but you know, that's already here, no? Okay, what are the other off-budget items? PCSO, magkano ang PCSO?
Actually, if you look at the
Ah,
yeah, if you look at the BSF, it's this taken item that shows the list of off-budget items, both revenues and expenditures. And for 2015, the total off-budget revenue expected is about 36.3 billion, and the total expenditures about 29.5 billion.
so you're saying there's 36 billion that you can determine how that is spent without the approval of Congress, in effect.
Well, you know, there have been past statutes approved that authorizes these
Yes, I
agencies.
understand, huh? Okay. And this would be include what? Malampaya, Pagcor, PCSO. Which one?
I think ang kasama lang dyan yung departments and SUKS. Pagcor, PCSO, and Malampaya are not part of that 36 billion.
No, they are. I'll give you an example because there are revolving funds that are included here. For example, Department of Agriculture, you have the Agricultural Competitiveness Enhancement Fund,
Lisa,
the Philippine Livestock Promotion Fund,
you know.
the BIFAR
No, I'm
Wildlife.
familiar with that document. No, let me ask a question. Pagcor, magkano? My understanding of what's listed in that document is
Pagcor?
is 14 billion na I think that they paid because of the provision of income taxes to the treasury. Pero meron bang iba pa na not in the BSF? PCSO would not be there. Di ba? Because if it would be found there,
If you
okay. So, in essence, Secretary, what we want to know lang naman is magkano naman yung off-budget items, ha? We discussed earlier the productive portion of the GAA, 1/3, 2/3 sumalabas, okay? Then we discussed the off-budget, certain off-budget items, what is that amount, and then we discussed the Malambay as part of that. Yes.
insofar as Pagcor is concerned, we expect a net income before subsidy of 2.8 billion, while in the case of PCSO, 1.92 billion, Mr. Chair.
Na net income yan after they determine how to spend whatever discretionary fund that they had.
That's correct. Less stockholders' equity, retained earnings, and things like that. Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Anyway, we look at that, no? And the idea is to find out magkano ba talaga itong mga off-budget items, ha? Okay. And how are these spent as well, no? Okay.
Senator Recto, if I may go a step further. Secretary, can you submit that to us when you face us insofar as the DBM budget is concerned? The off-budgets being asked by Senator Recto of the PCSO, of Pagcor, and I stand corrected. In the 2014 proposed budget, you included as part of the off-budget item SUKS, but in the 2015, you did not so include it. I don't know why, but can you submit that to us as well? Para makompleto yung picture na sinasabi ni Senator Recto. So I stand corrected. The 36 billion that you have in the 2015 BSF does not include SUKS pa. If I remember the SUKS of budget item, it's over 30 billion last year, roughly.
We will submit that, Mr. Chair.
Yes. And then, of course, you have the MBUCC, no?
That's correct, but which we program every year under the DPWH.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Secretary. And then, let me move on to the last two items na lang, Secretary, no? Okay. How much do we expect our savings to be this year? Or let's say in 2014 and 2015,
You mean the overall?
overall savings. for whatever reason, Secretary, more or less. Ano mo?
For 2013, it was about 47.5 billion is the overall savings coming from unreleased PS appropriations, discontinued project, and withdrawn an obligation allotment.
Yes.
But
what-
you don't have the 2014.
Yeah, but more or less, from the previous year's data, you would know more or less what 2014 would look like or 2015, di ba?
Well, if you average, for example, 2010 it was 63.6. 2011 it was almost 60. And 2012 was 66. If you average that, that's about it. But we don't want savings. We
Yes, I
want to be
understand.
able to spend more.
Understand.
So you will be
Yeah.
seeing a decrease of this item.
Yes, I understand. So roughly about 50, 60 billion a year, more or less, no? Okay. Now, I noticed that one of the biggest lump sum items in the budget and one of the hugest increases would be the MPBF.
Correct, Chair.
Magkano ba yung MPBF? About 118 billion, no?
You're correct. 108.
Okay, and this is savings from unfilled positions.
No, it's allocated for well, there are about 4 items there in general.
Yes.
One is performance-based benefits. For 2015, because we are providing, the original idea was to be able to adjust salaries for another round of SSL, but we were not able to finish the salary and benefits survey. So this year, the President has agreed to provide 1 month PEI, but performance-based with a minimum of 5,000 pesos, which is the existing policy. So that will be a big chunk of that, and part of that also is the performance-based bonus, which is also determined.
I understand.
So that's about 45.3 billion.
Okay. So,
And-
correct me,
and-
yes.
And then, no.
45.3.
And then the funding requirements for filling up unfilled positions totals 30.8 billion. The funding requirements for creation of new positions
16
is
billion.
16.7 billion. And then the payment of benefits like merit increase, DOJ standard staffing requirement, differences because of the rationalization program, and then the payment of overtime gives you the balance of about 25 billion, which totals 118, Mr. Chairman.
118 billion. So you mentioned earlier, and that's what I was going to drive on, the possibility of giving salary increases.
Well, it will not be a salary increase. It will be a one-time, because we hope to be able to finish the
Yeah.
salary
Yeah.
and benefit
Yeah.
survey by next year.
I understand,
That's the basis.
Secretary.
But in the meantime,
Yes. Okay. So let me reiterate, Secretary, no? 118 billion MPBF, basically from PS. Okay? Personal service, pasweldo. Okay, meron tayong 118 billion dito. It's one of the bigger items in the budget, no?
that's correct, Mr. Chief.
Okay. And you have 1.2 million filled permanent positions today. Okay? Now, there is a bill that I think the Senate passed yesterday on increasing subsistence allowances for AFP, PNP, Coast Guard personnel, so on and so forth, no? Which we adopted. Okay? That's roughly about 9 billion. That's not in the budget. But my understanding is that the executive is amenable to this.
Yes, the President has expressed.
Okay, very good.
In principle.
So, more or less, dito manggagaling yun.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, now, there are other bills also, no? And something that, I just like to bring forward, no? Meron din yung pera for the entire bureaucracy. I mean, kung nahihirapan pa tayo to decide, halimbawa, on a new SSL, okay? If we have difficulty yet on deciding that, the possibility of giving for all government employees, halimbawa, similar to what we're going to give to the AFP, the PNP, so on and so forth, no? Maybe, let's say, 2,000 pesos a month for each. Magkano lang yun? That's 12 billion, 24 billion. At 1,000, that's 1.2 billion a month. At 2,000, that's 2.4 billion a month. Times 12, that's 48 billion. Diba? O, 30 billion, 24 times 12, more or less. No? So, kayang-kayang pwede tayo magbigay dito kung sakasakali. I mean, these are the options, no? Secretary, I just wanted to point out, there are 3 options here what to do with savings. If you don't spend it, then what can be done? 1, reduce the deficit. So
That's
let's
what
not
happened.
borrow money, which eventually taxpayers will pay. That's one option. The other option is maybe it's high time to increase government salaries also. Okay? At ito, flat. Whether secretary ka or janitor ka, lowest salary grade, pare-pareho kayo lahat. Ha? Or the third is to give a tax cut. You have 3 options here. Okay? And the Senate President mentioned earlier about the need for income tax reform. The last time we adjusted was in 97. But based on our research here, that 1997, those figures were found in 1994. Furthermore, we are, in our new research, baka 1977 pa. So can you imagine? So if you're earning 500,000 taxable income, more or less, today, you're the highest in the region, paying 32%. Maybe that is one of the reasons why nahihirapan din yung middle class and many government employees. Diba? I mean, if you want, governance is about fair, equitable taxation and tamang paggastos ng pera ng bayan din eh. We cannot only look at one side, the expenditure side, but we have to take a look at the fairness of the tax system as well. No? So if we've not adjusted this for 20 years, and we know that there are savings, and these are the options, or we can probably do the 3. Kung mataas pa talaga yung savings eh. Huh? I would highly recommend that the economic managers review all these 3 items and make a decision. We cannot have a situation na 19 years natin pag-iisipan to. Like the fiscal incentives bill. It is a yearly debate. It is not 19 years. I mean, every year we discuss naman eh. We pass the budget, we look at taxes, so on and so forth. No? So, just a reminder, Secretary, on those 3 items, what can be done. No? And finally, there is a portion in the budget, yung MRT. Can this be explained to us, what this equity buyout is? Ang halaga nito, 54 billion. There is a subsidy of 6 billion. So MRT alone in this budget, 60 billion ang pinag-uusapan.
Chair, can we recognize Secretary
Yes.
of Finance to
Mr.
respond?
Chair, in the previous administration, they instructed the Land Bank and DBP to purchase approximately 80% of the economic interest of MRT.
Okay. And how much was that?
About $800 million approximately.
$800 million.
Yeah. And then there is still a portion that's not owned by either the Land Bank or the DBP. And the decision, since this is an onerous...
Who bought this? The MRT? The economic, 80% economic interest.
approximately.
Yeah.
by-
So mga 35 billion pesos, more or less.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And who bought this? DBP, Land Bank?
DBP and Land Bank.
Both government banks.
Yes. Yeah.
How did they decide to buy this?
This was the instruction of the previous administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then since it's halfway, no, and the
In
bank,
return, what do they get nga pala for that 80%?
they get good return, 15% return on the bonds that they're holding. On the
Okay.
other hand of the equation, that's very expensive debt for us, and there are many
If
provisions.
I may, Secretary, I'm sorry, I read somewhere that the BSP was not in agreement with the Land Bank owning, is that correct? DBP Land Bank buying 35 billion worth of the 80% economic interest of MRT?
Mr. Chairman, it's an exception to existing rules.
What does that mean? You're in favor or not in favor?
We are not in favor, basically. What we have done is to accommodate, since this is going to be a transitory arrangement. In other words, the plan is to eventually sell down these bonds to a third party. We gave them a deadline, which within which to sell the bonds. We gave
Okay.
both Land Bank and DBP.
Okay, thank you for that, Governor. Secretary, so for my understanding, no, we bought 80% economic interest of MRT, and we're making good money from those bonds because 15% ang return natin dun sa 35 billion every year. For the next how many years, Secretary?
Maybe until 2025.
Until 2025.
Yeah.
Pwede bang makabili ng bonds na yun? Magandang return yun eh, 15%.
The other side to the coin, sir,
Now,
is
having
the
said
government
that-
is the one that pays that 15%
Correct,
also.
correct.
So,
Okay, so the point is this, no? In effect, in the past, kasi PPP project to, tama?
Unsolicited.
It's an unsolicited project under the BOT system.
Yeah.
Di ba? Okay, ginawa to panahon ni Presidente Ramos.
If I'm not mistaken.
Ha? Nung panahon na yun, mataas ang interest rate. Meron tayong Asian financial crisis din eh. Kasama yun eh. Okay?
This was before that, actually.
Correct, correct. But more or less, interest rates then were very high. We're higher than today, that's for sure.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
But this was before the Asian financial crisis, so maybe 12%.
Yeah, okay. So 12% is still good. I would buy a bond today at 12%, right? Okay, now, in that point in time, so mas mataas ang interest rate because the macroeconomic conditions were different. And the global economy was different, okay? So medyo mas mataas ang interest rate, no? And they wanted a return of 15%, in effect.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, actually, it's not just the return. It's the
Yeah.
fact that they do not face any risk at all. There is no commercial risk. Everything's guaranteed by the government. And if you've noticed, that's not the way we've been undertaking PPP projects under the Aquino administration.
Yes.
In fact, the bidders have been
Yeah.
paying the government.
Understood, understood,
premium.
understood.
That's why we want to unwind
Yes.
this onerous contract. And since we own 80% already, we sought permission from the president to buy the balance. And
One by one
take-
muna,
take it
Secretary.
out of
Let me
the
do it
land bank
for
and-
us to understand it and appreciate it. Let's do this one by one. Okay. So we understand what happened in the past. Government bought the economic interest 80%. And this is an issue now kasi nakikita natin yung MRT at yung problema araw-araw dyan eh. Okay. Now, and we're looking for a solution here. Okay? That's why I'm bringing this out, no? So that we can look for a solution, no? Okay, so 80%. Binili natin, maganda ang return sa atin ngayon. Okay? And we're saying that government is better off buying this back, in effect. Okay? Kasi we when we were discussing this, in effect, government and the private sector then pumayag ang gobyerno, 15%, walang risk kayong lahat. Di ba? Parang ganun eh. So now we're saying, medyo mahal. Okay? And we're saying, oh sige, let's buy back the economic interest, 80%. And we already did that. We're making a good return on that. Left pocket to the right pocket, as far as the government is concerned. No? In the past, who was operating the MRT? Was it the private sector or was it the government? When they started, who was operating the MRT?
There was an operating entity called, yeah.
Please use the mic.
Please use the mic, ma'am.
Sir, at that time, the operations and maintenance is the responsibility of MRTC. But
Which is the private sector.
yes, sir. And but then, come 2012, it was transferred to DOTC because DOTC said that they would now want to handle the operations and maintenance. So they were the ones who contracted for the maintenance contract.
Ma'am, if I may, how do you know this?
Sir, I'm a member of the MRTC board.
MRT
C
Co.
board.
MRTC board under DOTC.
No, it's a separate entity that manages the MRTC, the Line 1, the Line 3 project. There's a board that handles...
Iba pa yung MRT Holdings.
Ay, kasama po yun kasi po yung bali the board is now composed of the Land Bank and DBP being the majority holders of the ownership of
Ma'am,
MRTC.
let me clarify that. I think Senator Recto is leading to that too. The Sobrepeñas who used to own this company securitized the earnings of MRT3, right? Yun yung binili ng Land Bank at DBP. Land Bank and DBP, correct me if I'm wrong, did not buy shares of stock of the company. It did not, right? It bought the economic interest in the company. Kasi nga sinecuritize eh, para kumbaga spin off niya
It bought, in effect, the future earnings
of the company, but not the company. We're not yet there. Diba? Anong board ngayon, ma'am, yung sinasabi niyo?
Kasi, sir, what happened is that for the original shareholders who used to own the bonds and the shares, because of by privilege of the Land Bank and DPP having now the 80% economic interest, they have nominated the Land Bank and DPP to sit in the board. So nominees lang po sila ng original shareholders. So they're not the real shareholders now, but they are just nominees of the original shareholders.
Kasama yan sa binili ba po ng
Kasama
Land
po dun sa usapan, dun sa documentation na that would be the rights of the new of the DBP and Land Bank having the economic rights to the MRT.
to be nominees?
Yes.
But DBP and Land Bank do not own a single share of stock.
No sir, they are just nominees. Pero they have shares.
We
Meron
own-
pong
we own, 20%.
Meron pong
Yeah,
10%
yeah.
preference shares
Ng DBP at Land Bank.
ng yung sa MRTC, sir. Hindi po-
Preferred shares.
Yes, sir.
Preferred shares.
Preferred shares.
So, labas yan dun sa presyong lumabas sa dyaryo a few weeks ago, a few days ago, yung sinasabi ni Senator Rectong 56 billion kung bibili niyo yung kumpanya.
Nasa budget dito ngayon.
That's
Nasa-
why it's
Kaya-
56 billion because we want to take it all out of Land Bank and DBP. So the 35, that was the first transaction under the previous
Plus
administration.
54.
Plus whatever
Ah.
we spend, no, that will be used by Land Bank to acquire the whole thing. Then we take it off Land Bank. That's where the 54 will be used. Mapapasok po sa Land Bank at sa DBP.
But sir, that's economic interest. As we have seen in the past months, one of the reasons perhaps why we keep on having problems with the MRT, demanda ng demanda tong MRT holdings na to. Dinemanda ang DOTC with the RTC and with the CA when they tried to procure new trains. In fact, nagka-TRO pa for a while, na lift na lang. Demanda sa DOTC by this company, insofar as the O&M contracts entered into by DOTC is concerned. And now they even issued a press release, I think a few days ago, that they've been telling DOTC to check the rail, which DOTC hasn't done. We're buying it from them. Is it a takeover? We're buying it from them, or are they willingly selling it?
The balance of 20% is in the market because they sold it before. So we will be buying it from whoever is holding the bonds.
The economic interest.
The economic interest.
But what about the company, sir?
The company, we're also going to try and buy it, and I understand that the Metro Pacific Group has the
Okay.
Right now they do.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, let's go back to the previous question for a while, with the permission of the chair, so that we can understand this clearly, Okay, we bought 35% for 80% of future earnings. Okay? And I'm sure we paid the premium for that kasi mataas yung interest rate. There must have been a premium of some sort. 35 billion. Okay. And then there is a 54 billion in the budget here on the table. You're asking us to approve this budget. This is not in the program portion as we discussed earlier, but in the unprogrammed portion of the budget. It is 54 of 125 in the unprogrammed. A sizable amount. Okay? This 54 billion, bibigay natin kay Nino to.
Land Bank and DBP.
Okay. So you're telling me, kikita ang Land Bank, DBP, may premium din sila ngayon. May premium sila. 35 natin binili. Nila. Babayaran natin sila ng 54. Is that correct?
Not exactly, Mr.
Sige,
Senator.
please explain that portion first.
Because
one by one.
the 35 is only a portion, no? So they will have to buy the balance now. So if you add the 35 plus whatever it will cost them to get the balance, no? That's what we will have to reimburse them. So that then the BSP, the problem they have with the BSP can be lifted. And then we end up with
Eh bakit natin binili in the first place kung magkakaproblema pala sa BSP?
that
And
was
then
not
ngayon-
us, Mr. Senator. That was the previous administration. But since we
Yeah,
are
yeah,
in a situation
but- oh.
where 3/4 in,
Oh.
no, we might as well go
But what-
all the way in.
I understand. Teka
and,
sandali. Secretary,
remove the-
Secretary,
Yeah.
look at the situation. May 35 billion na ginastos taxpayers money dati. Walang pakinabang dun sa mananakay ng MRT. Ngayon pinag-uusapan natin dito, 54 billion. I don't know kung mag-i-improve ba next year yung sasakyan ng MRT dito. Parang hindi maliwanag sa akin ito. And then, 3, parang napakaraming dahilan. Meron sinabi yung previous administration daw, and many of them came, the same staff that you must have in the Department of Finance, I suppose, the same bureaucracy who recommended this. They sit in the Land Bank, they sit in the DBB, they're members of the DBCC, inaprubahan, umupo doon, and then suddenly the BSP is saying, "Uy, you guys should not be holding 35 billion in economic interest." So gagastos na naman tayo ng 54 billion. Parang there's something wrong here eh. Okay? Now, and at the end, walang pakinabang yung mananakay. Hindi sila sigurado kung gaganda ba yung takbo ng MRT o hindi. Not to mention, maraming kaso pa ulit. Maraming kaso pa ulit. You know, I'm still gonna go to LRT1, LRT2, magkano nasa budget para dyan naman. Okay, so ulitin ko lang para maintindihan natin na mabuti to. We should not be very fast with people's money. Masyado tayo mabilis magdesisyon dito sa mga taxpayers' money na bilhin natin to, and then we don't have, parang we're not operating it properly. That's the point. So let me take a step backward again. This was run by the private sector in the past. Is that correct? BOT to eh. Private money, sila naglabas ng pera, nakipagkasunduan sa gobyerno, sinabi ng gobyerno noon, 15% babayaran namin kayo. At that time, I suppose competitive yung 15%. Pero, bago pa lang tayo sa PPP siguro noon, kung binigay natin lahat. Posible. Binigay natin lahat. O we guaranteed yung kontrata. Whatever that is, right? And then now we're saying, we must have given too much, let's buy it back. And at the moment, since we did that, walang improvement. That's the point. Okay? So, until 2012, or until 2011, the private sector was running the trains. Right? No? No, that's what...
The maintenance contract is with
You just gave a
MRT.
maintenance contract, but you know, a lot of these things are, most of you don't know about this. You're the one who knows, Ms. De Leon, because you were there from the very beginning, di ba? Okay.
Sir, I just
I'm not
came in nung
blaming-
nung
I'm
nag-buy
not
out.
blaming you, but I've already advised the secretary that there's no use buying the bonds because you were not buying the common stock, so you didn't have the right to even expand by one cap.
And I'm going to
Alright,
get to
now,
that. Yes.
let me explain, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, now because there's a lot of errors in here. I investigated this. This is the MRT bonds, and Ms. De Leon, you were then what? Undersecretary of Finance.
Sir.
That's right. And the problem started. This is not a BOT. This is a bill lease transfer.
Correct.
So MRT Corporation, the one headed by Sobre Peña, and there were 5 big companies and 2 smaller companies. That's the Ramcar Group, the Ayala Group, the Jeffrey Yao Campus Group, which is Greenfields, and the National Bookstore guy. Yeah, then plus two smaller ones. No? Well, the government never. They won the contract. It started in 2001. It was a 25-year cooperating period to have expired in 2025. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. De Leon. Right? Okay. Unfortunately, this was a bill lease transfer and it was never included in the budget. So since Sobre Peña and company were never being paid on time, because I remember the first time Lito Camacho, Secretary Lito Camacho, ran to my office and said, Sobre Peña just came from my office and he said I owed him 2.3 billion. Is that correct? I said, yes, I think that's correct because we guaranteed them a certain return. And so the government never paid on time because they had to include it in the next year's budget. Therefore, Sobre Peña went to Gloria Arroyo and said, do you mind if we securitize our economic interest, which was a guaranteed 15%. Actually, it was 18%. This was a deal. So, ang binigay ni Ramos, yung Trinoma. Sabi niya, let's keep it at 15 because 18 looks too high. Even at a time when interest rates were high, 18 really look absurd. So, let's keep it at 15 and I'll give you the Trinoma development. Okay? So it was at 15 and Gloria Arroyo gave them the right to securitize the economic interest. The economic interest, not the equity.
Correct.
Not the common stock.
But who's operating the trains? Who
Yeah,
were
DOTC.
operating?
It
So
was
from the
DOTC.
very beginning, DOTC was operating.
Yes.
But
It
the
was-
maintenance,
There was a lot of leakage. The generals were screwing it right and left.
The maintenance was
They
DOTC
gave
also,
a
public or
maintenance to Sumitomo. Sumitomo had a maintenance contract up to 2011.
but who bidded that project out to Sumitomo? Private or public?
No, DOTC.
So public.
Yeah.
So they never operated it. The private sector never operated it. It's always been...
DOTC.
Yeah, and to understand the BLT in effect, okay, they built it and then we paid them lease payments for 25 years, then sa atin na yun after 25 years, correct? That was the agreement. Okay.
Let me correct you then.
okay.
Okay. The cooperating agreement expires in 2025. However, they have a clause in their bylaws and articles of incorporation that they cannot sell the equity until the end of the cooperating agreement. All right? So therefore, what happened was that now